Okay, so let's dive into how we should be spending our time this week. So, don't let me tell you how to spend your time. That's not what I'm saying. If you want to know how I'm taking advantage of this week, that's what we're going to talk about. So, rest. We need rest. It's no secret how good a consistent sleep schedule is for you guys. It looks like I just got out of bed because I did. I'm getting extra rest this week. I'm sleeping in. I'm taking naps. So times when I would normally be playing DFS, I'm doing anything but playing DFS. I'm really trying to decompress so that I get some time away from the game. As fun as it is, it really can take its toll on you, and more so than we think. And there's a couple of things into that. So we're gonna get into the weeds a little bit here. So one of the things I have noted here is know your enemy, and this is something that we talk about on a lot of the coaching calls. So know your enemy. What I mean by that is know how your brain works. So we're going to talk about why this rest is important for the effect that DFS has on your brain when you're winning and also when you're losing. So when you win, number one, the brain. So let's go back a second. The brain's number one job is to protect the body. Now, for the first time in all of human civilization, probably the last 40 or 50 years, especially here in the West, for the first time ever, the brain's number one job is not worried about survival. Our society, most of us are going to live very happy, productive, safe lives. So with that in mind, a lot of the stuff that we're learning about the brain is new. So when it comes to something like DFS, when you win, so let's say you had a really big night. Let's say you won $2,000 in one night. And that's definitely possible, especially at the lower stakes. That's not a pie in the sky number, and that's a big number that most people would love to achieve something like that in DFS, and it's 100% possible. And when that happens, the first thing that your brain wants to do, again, to protect you, is it's going to look at what it took to win $2,000 in the past. So it's going to say, wait a second, so you won $2,000 in one night. That would take a month in the past to make that kind of money. So that doesn't make sense to the brain. So the brain's going to tell you that was too easy or that was a fluke. And that might be the case. But if you've been putting in the work, it might not be. And a lot of the times when we win that amount of money in a short amount of time, we start thinking, well, I need to justify that now. I need to justify why I won that money. And so you start thinking about making things more complicated when you should be keeping things simple. And you got to look at it, you got to reframe it. So you didn't make $2,000 tonight, you did, but you were basically being properly compensated and all the back pay for all the time and all the energy and all the hours where you lost money, didn't make any money, you're up late studying, you're putting in all this work. So understand if you are experiencing, because that almost always happens, you win, and then you immediately overcomplicate your process, and you have to blow up your process again because you overcomplicated it. And then you go back to basics and you see what won, and you're like, oh my gosh, it was right here in front of my face, and I didn't even realize it. So that, number one. Number two, when you win a lot of money at DFS, or even a couple $100, that is a dopamine hit to your brain that is the equivalent of a stimulant drug like cocaine. So your brain loves that feeling. It wants more of that, and that, the nights where I struggle to sleep the most are the nights where I have the biggest wins. I know, same thing with Blazer. When Blazer has a big win, he can't sleep for the next week, because you're so excited. So we need to take some of this time back to rest. The other thing that we need to think about here when we're looking at losses, so let's go back to our example of winning $2,000. That feels great to the brain. Now let's say over the course of a week, you have a really bad week and you lose $500. Well, the brain, and you can look this up, they've done scientific studies on this, the brain looks at a loss twice as worse as a win. So if you've lost $500 over a couple of days, to the brain, again, that wants to protect the body, it feels like you've lost $1,000. So even though you won $2,000 and you lost $500 and you're still up $1,500, your brain only feels like you're up $1,000. So that's just a rough example, but be in tune to that. So if you're suffering, I shouldn't say suffering, that's not the right word, but if you're feeling a physical toll or mental exhaustion from the ups and downs of DFS, number one, recognize what the brain's doing. Number two, get the extra rest. And there's going to be times where, especially you guys that are working and have kids and, burning the candle at both ends to make it. Like, I've been there, dude. Like, that's how I'm here. That's what I did to get here. So I can empathize with that. But just understand that it's worth it as long as we're building up the right habits. And again, amateur versus professional. So, the amateur is not going to understand. It's going to let his emotions run him ragged. The professional needs to tell the brain who's in charge. I was reading something, I forget where I saw it. I think it was on Twitter or something, but Jocko Willenick said something like, hey, did I want to get up at 4 o'clock this morning and exercise? I didn't feel like it, but my feelings didn't have a say in the matter, so I did it. So that's very important to understand the way that our physiology is working so that we can maintain our professional approach, our professional mindset, and be able to, your brain can only make so many decisions throughout the day. So that's another reason why we want to streamline everything and put systems in place so that we don't have that decision fatigue, so that we're operating at peak performance when it comes time to build lineups. And getting our rest and knowing what the brain needs and how playing this game affects the brain is so key. I can't stress enough. Hey, sleep's important. I just did 6 minutes on why sleep's important. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but that's one of the things that I like studying is how the brain works. So when we play this game, that's something to be thinking about. So we'll wrap it here, and then we'll start diving into our review. So hopefully you guys, and again, I got a D in chemistry, so probably a C+ in biology, barely. So take this for what I'm not a doctor, but you can Google this stuff. It's all true. I don't know. What does science know?